Hello, everybody. This is Ken Weber. I'm president of Weber Asset Management. Today is Wednesday, December 16th, 2020, the year 2020, finally coming to a close. Tumultuous, eventful year. We are here in Lake Success, New York, just outside the border from New York City. We are expecting a major snowstorm in the next several hours. So for those of you who joined us, if you're in the Northeast, I hope you're staying safe and warm. I'm being joined today by my daughter-in-law, Jennifer Weber, who is our certified financial planner. The topic, as you well know, is, Jen, let's go back to that slide so I get it exactly right. When the unexpected happens, what your family needs to know. The reason we are doing this particular topic today is this has certainly come up over the years, but for some reason, maybe the pandemic, maybe other reasons, certain things have happened that we've heard about with our clients, and we said we really ought to address some of them.
Oh.
Are we okay?
I lost Ken for a second.
Okay, are we still good?
We're good.
Okay, that was strange. Okay, so this is a topic that many of our clients either have discussed informally or have brought up recently, and we're going to cover a wide range of topics. Jen, let's go to the next slide, and we'll just talk the other one after that. Yeah, so we're going to talk about some emotional roadblocks, how to approach a difficult conversation with your family members. Now, most of you, our client base, are people in their 50s and 60s. We have many people older, obviously, and we have quite a few now who are younger than that. So no matter where you are, you might have people above you on the family tree that you need to talk about, or below. That's what we'll be discussing here today. We're going to touch on some common financial planning mistakes that we want you to avoid. We're going to talk about some estate planning documents and beneficiary designations. And certainly we want you to comment. There's a Q&A and there's a chat. So we will see those as we progress. We want to start off by letting you know we are financial people. We are not lawyers. So everything we talk about, if it's a legal issue, you want to double check with your own personal attorney. So Jen, let's go to the next slide and we'll get things. Okay. So how to approach a conversation with family members. Jen, I'll let you talk to us about that.
Okay. So there's many points in life where planning can be exciting, but there's also times in life, when we're talking about end of life, when we're talking about later in life, that can be very uncomfortable or awkward. And we understand that because talking about death and money can often be taboo, and we decide it's so uncomfortable that we're avoiding the conversation. But really what we need to understand about estate planning is this is an opportunity for you to decide what your wishes are, what your long-term expectations are. And this can be regarding your health care. This could be regarding if you want to move into a long-term care facility or you prefer home care. And then, of course, it's also talking about end of life. So it's important to understand that however difficult these conversations may seem, ultimately, they're for you and they serve in your best interest and for your family's best interest, so they know your wants and wishes. So to get started, it helps if you can find a reason to talk about. With COVID, that's a great starting point because it was the unexpected. There was a lot of health decisions that needed to be made for family members. And unfortunately, we lost, close friends and family members to COVID. We know them personally who lost family members. And if any of you are on the call with us today, we've been thinking about you. And it was one of the reasons why we wanted to have this webinar today.
As well as might add, just recently, as I said, we've had some clients who passed away, and the next generation, who are adult children, had no clue about what was happening in the estate, where the money was, how much was there, what the wishes were. And so it's a combination of things that have happened recently, in the past, and the whole COVID problem.
Right. So it's very easy to find this reason to talk about, there's COVID. We also hear about celebrities. There was Prince a couple years ago. Most recently, Tony Hsieh, the founder of Zappos, who was 46, died unexpectedly without a will. So you could always forward these articles to family members to kind of get the topic going and say that you want to set time to discuss. What we really recommend is setting a meeting, a scheduled meeting. And so everybody knows that it's going to be a conversation, around money, around your long-term, plans.
Right. What we want to avoid is just, you'll talk about it someday, or you'll bring it up during Christmas or Hanukkah, when everybody's just drinking and eating. That's probably not going to work for you.
Right, exactly. We actually want to avoid, the holidays. Holidays can be stressful enough for many families. So try to avoid those particular times, or if there is going to be a family meal, say maybe you're going to do it before that or after. So it's not that exact time that you're really trying to enjoy yourself and celebrate. Also, if you set this time aside, if you structure the meeting appropriately, it's a way to kind of leave your emotions out of the discussion. And I think that that's so important because these are very emotional points. But if you can try to keep it as factual as possible, that will be to your benefit.
Right. So the key here is don't spring it on your family. Let them know on Tuesday or a week from now or on my birthday or whatever it is, I want to have this discussion. We're going to talk about some money issues and some financial planning issues that we want to share with you. Make it very gentle and open.
Right. For our younger clients, it is an opportunity that you can just ask your parents if they're working with an estate planner. Do they have the appropriate documents in order? Another way to start the conversation. But we do need to be realistic that these conversations are ongoing, that it is, estate planning is a process. Not all decisions are made in one meeting. You could have one discussion regarding your long-term care plans and your wishes for that. You could have another discussion about your insurance documents, or you could have a conversation, for example, about who you're designating in the family to handle financial decisions, or who you're having handle health decisions. These can all be separate conversations, so it doesn't have to be one discussion and that's it.
Let me just add, by the way, we say here, ask your parents if they are working with an estate planner. We really also should have said if they are working with a financial person like Weber Asset Management, so that if you're working with a financial professional, many of you who are watching us right now certainly are working with us, you should let the next generation know who we are, why you chose us, and what we do for you, and how they can find the information. We also want to point out, and this has come to our attention recently, you really ought to let us know, let the financial planners know, let the investment advisors know who the next generation is, not just by name, but with their contact information as well. We recently just had a problem contacting the three sons of a client who passed away, and we had no way of letting them know what was going on in the financial life of their deceased parent. And so that, again, was a trigger factor for us to say, we got to have this discussion with our clients. But you really need to let everybody who needs to know who the generation above, who the generation below are, with names and contact information.
That's so great and so true, Ken. And it leads me into, our next point, which is common mistakes to avoid. That's one of them. And we'll talk about a couple more. So many people acknowledge that estate planning is extremely important. But when I was doing a little research, we found that 68% of people don't have a will. And that's really, concerning. They don't have a plan. And if something happens, if you don't have a will, it ultimately goes to the courts to handle on your behalf. So what you want to do is really try to avoid that and make it as easy as possible for your family. This is
And when people say, again, we're not lawyers, but when people say it goes to the court, that can be a very drawn out and painful process for everybody involved, as opposed to having a clear-cut will. Boom, all your wishes are there. Things go fairly smoothly, at least in theory.
Right. And it's important that you want to make these decisions when you're equipped to do so, not when you're in a crisis mode. So the more planning you do now, the more it's beneficial for you in the long term. Another issue is not naming contingent beneficiaries. And we deal with this with our clients, specifically on accounts, but it can also be in your estate planning documents. So for an IRA, for example, you're allowed to name primary beneficiaries. And then if something happens to those primary beneficiaries, contingent beneficiaries. So this is a good reminder to review that and make sure that you have contingent beneficiaries, not only on your retirement accounts, but also within your will. So if one of your beneficiaries passes away, there's a plan for what happens to those assets. Next is not updating your documents. If there's a major life event, it's very important to update your documents. So that includes, marriage, divorce, having children. And I'm going to go back, not only not updating your documents, but also updating your beneficiaries. We've known of people who've been divorced, who have had life insurance policies. They did not change their beneficiary on that life insurance policy. They might have been remarried, and when they died, that policy paid out to, their ex-spouse. So it's something to just think about and remember as life events happen.
I'm going to do a mea culpa here. Not updating your documents. Ken Weber, I signed an updated will yesterday, and it had been many, many years previously that we did our documents. And so it was just yesterday that I sat with our estate planning attorney and the team there. And it is a little off-putting to see last will and testament of Kenneth Weber. Yeah, you're talking about mortality, but you got to do it. If you love the people in your family, hopefully you do, you have to do it. You have to sit down and make sure it's done correctly.
Right. We're very proud of Ken for doing his will. Another strategy could be, and it depends on your situation, but you might want to start gifting assets while you're living. This could be beneficial for a couple different reasons. One is to reduce your estate. And another reason is, reduce your taxable estate. And another reason is it might be more meaningful to you to have that beneficiary enjoy your gift while you're still living. So a couple gifting rules. It is this year $15,000 per person that you are allowed to gift tax-free. So as a couple, if you're doing a joint gift, you could give $30,000 to a person, or as an individual, $15,000 to an individual without any tax consequences. It is important, however, if you plan to do significant gifting while you are alive, to talk to your financial planner and to do a proper, full financial plan. And we say that because as much as you want to give and as much as you want to be generous, we understand that and we appreciate that, but you also want to make sure that you have enough assets to cover any unexpected, situations for you. So any major health issues, you have money set aside, a bump in living expenses, you have that covered. So as a reminder, all of our clients have complimentary financial planning available to them.
And who's the financial planner at Weber Asset Management?
That would be me.
That would be you, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And Jen, by the way, is excellent. Those of you who have gone through the exercise I can say, we're not allowed to guarantee much in this business, but I guarantee every single person every single family usually who's done the financial plan exercise with Jen has been thoroughly pleased. And many have come back, a year later or 2 years later, or yearly, I should say, to update it, to keep it up to date, up and always fresh. And many come to her throughout the year with questions. And because she has a full, complete picture of where you are and where you hope to be, she's ready with the answers typically.
Right.
So it is important to share and keep us up to date with what's going on in your life.
Thank you. Also is not selecting the appropriate executor. So sometimes that decision can be very tough. Other times you're thinking, oh, this is my eldest child, I'll put them in charge. But I think families really need to think through that, clearly, because that person will ultimately be in charge of handling your estate, making sure everything is dispersed properly, if any debts need to be repaid, and dividing assets. So make sure that person is capable of handling that. And also, if you don't have a family member, there are, plenty of other people that you could select to be the executor, and they do receive compensation for handling that for you.
And it could be a trusted family friend.
Correct.
Yeah, finding somebody to be the appropriate executor is often not easy, but that's why you got to plan ahead. You have to give this some thought. Should not be a last minute rushed decision.
And I do want to say, I think we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but whoever you do select, it's okay to then tell the other family members, this is why we selected this person to handle the estate, to be the executor. And so it's not a surprise for anybody. Really, with all these things you're trying to do is to avoid any family squabbling after you pass. I just got one question, and letting you know this is planning just for 30 minutes. We will take questions after if we go over, but if feel free to drop off if you need to.
Yeah, we're not taking attendance.
So what are the estate planning documents that you need to, have in place? Start off, power of attorney and healthcare proxy. So what these are: power of attorney, financial power of attorney. It is a person you are selecting to handle any financial issues, so your accounts, withdrawals, investments on your behalf while you are still living. And that's very important. That's the power of attorney only lasts while you are alive. Once you are deceased, they are no longer the POA. Healthcare proxy also is someone that you are selecting to make these healthcare decisions for you while you are alive. And oftentimes that goes along with a living will, or otherwise called an advance directive. So those are your wishes that you want for any, life-sustaining treatment. What do you want? And then your healthcare proxy can help make sure that that is handled in your best wishes.
By the way, what I signed yesterday, Jen, I gave the family power to pull the plug. No rush. Just take your time. I'm just saying. It's fresh in my mind. It was just yesterday. What was that?
We want you alive as long as possible, so we won't think about that.
Thank you. Move on quickly. There you go.
Next is your will, which he did also sign. So that talks about, covering your property and your assets. Also within a will, and for younger clients and for family members to talk about with their kids, it is guardianship for your children. And I've seen a lot of, people my age and younger who the first time they go to make a will is really because they've had a child. And it's so important because in the event that anything happens to them, they've named those guardians.
Yeah, let me just say a will is important for just about any adult who's earning money. But if you're married, and especially if there's one or more children involved, a will is a must.
Right.
And while you're getting ready for the next slide, I'll just say, and Jen and I were talking about this earlier, yeah, the best thing you can do is to go to an attorney, but if money is an issue, there are many online will maker programs. A lot of controversy about how good they are, but Jen and I agree, it's better to have some will than no will. And the online will maker programs have gotten much better over the years. So if it's a fairly simple will that you think you'll need, you may be able to get along with an online program, but do some research before you sign up for that.
Thank you for adding that. Some of our clients, or a lot of our clients, also have trust in place. It's important to think about trusts when you have a large estate or multiple beneficiaries. You could have a living revocable trust. And what this states, there's various different trusts, but a trust, which is different than a will, can give stipulations on how your assets are distributed, the timing of distribution. For example, you can have an account that can flow into a trust, and if you have younger children, you could decide to give them a third of their money at age 25, another third at 30, and another third at 35. That's just one example of what you can do inside a trust. But it also, a living trust also helps you avoid probate. So anything that flows into the trust avoids probate and going to the courts to settle your estate. Trust planning can also be used to help minimize estate taxes, which I know is important for many of you. So just different things to consider as you're planning. And we've hit on this already, but again, this is beneficiaries. It's just so important. We cannot emphasize this enough. These could be beneficiaries on your IRA accounts. These could be beneficiaries within your estate planning documents and making sure that assets flow properly. If you have an individual account, you might consider adding a beneficiary. And at Fidelity, we can help with that. It's one form, and your individual account can become a transfer on death account, meaning that your assets in your name that you are in control of while you were alive automatically flow to another person at death. And that, again, avoids any probate.
Jen, we have about 5 minutes left. So.
All right. 5 minutes.
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to quickly wrap up, and then I already see a couple of questions coming in. So we will try to get those. So estate planning during a pandemic. Ken just did estate planning during a pandemic. So we're very proud.
And I will say that when we walked in to do the final stuff yesterday, they said that we were lucky that we just happened to start it months ago without thinking about the pandemic. But it took a long time for everything to fall into place. And they said lots of people now are trying to get everything done by 12/31, the end of the year. So really, that's another reason that spurred us to say, don't wait. Don't just wait. It's always, we can do it next month or next month or next month. Make a plan, do it now, do it sooner rather than later.
Right. And while you're doing that, you really want to organize all your information in one place. We will be sending out, I hope, a record keeper later to all of our attendees on this call to help, or if you already have one. And what a record keeper is just allows you to document all the different, estate planning documents that you already have done. It also includes insurance. It includes, who is your financial advisor? Where are those accounts? You might have multiple advisors, and it's important to list everybody so people know who to contact in the event of an emergency. Also, plan for your final arrangements. If, I know that my family has, my mom is very opinionated on what she wants. It's not opinionated, it's her wish. And she wants that honored in terms of what happens at, the end of her life, where she's buried, and funeral arrangements. So I think that's very important to think about. That might not be in your will per se, but you might want to write a letter to your family members of your final wishes. And maybe it's something that you've already paid for, that's taken care of, and that it wasn't in the document, but just, letting your family know is important.
When I first looked at this, I saw it quickly. I said, plan floral arrangements. And then I realized I was different.
Very different.
Might be connected. You never know. But
And
talk to your loved ones, because again, I'm saying the same thing over and over, but all this that we're talking to you about today comes from our experience, not only in our own lives, but just over the years dealing with clients, and especially over the last several months. Several things have pushed us forward to do this particular webinar for you today.
right. I can't agree more. And also, all of this and talking to your loved ones, really, if you can take the emotion out of it, lead with the facts, and just help prepare your family for the future, is so beneficial, because then your wishes are met and it helps take away that stress for, all those involved. So now we will open it up to any questions. And for those of you that do have to drop, I want to thank you all for joining. Please feel free to contact us at any time.
Well, the first question is from an anonymous attendee. What is the threshold amount in your estate to consider having a trust?
So I don't think that there is a particular amount that is required to start thinking about trust. When you do go to your estate planning attorney to have that discussion, you should mention that it's something that you maybe heard or thinking about. Does that make sense for you? A big reason also in certain states about having these living trusts, these revocable living trusts, is to avoid probate. So it might make sense just for that reason alone. I also just got another question regarding how much does an outside executor receive as a fee? I think that depends on terms of who the executor is.
Where you live. Yeah.
Where you live. I've worked with trust companies. There are set fees if they are to manage that process. There's also a percentage of, assets under management within that trust that they're handling. So it does depend, who you're hiring, but it is typically included in the will, that the executor will receive compensation for their time.
Jen, we're right at the time we promised people we would cut this off, but our contact information is there on the screen. Most of you already know us. You're always welcome to contact us about this or any other financial issue that you need to discuss with Jen, myself, or any of the staff here at Weber Asset Management. So Jen, anything you need to add at this moment?
Yeah, I just, if people want to say, another question that I was just going to answer quickly. The question came in, can you recommend, are you familiar with an online review source for online legal document prep? Or is there an online review and a normal and customary legal expense to prepare for these kinds of documents? There's multiple, Ken mentioned there's multiple companies that do online document prep. And we're not going to recommend one, but if you do the quick Google search, you'll get a list of some, recommended online resources. And I think the fee really depends. It can range, $300 to $1,200, and it depends on your situation and what you need. Some online resources allow you to work with an attorney while you're doing that process. So that's also a great resource for you. And it does depend on your state as well, what they allow. Since COVID, a lot of states, there was already like 23 states prior to COVID that allowed virtual notarizations of documents, because a will has to be
news. Yeah.
A will has to be notarized. And after COVID, like New York changed their rules and allowed virtual notaries. because it's important. So that is available. So check within your state. For an unusual or customary legal or attorney fees for document prep, it definitely depends. I would say maybe the average for plain vanilla estate planning could be $1,500 to $2,000 a document, probably closer to $2,000. I don't want that price tag to be a reason that anyone avoids taking this step. And why I say that now is if you're avoiding it financially, well, one, look online, but two, ultimately your beneficiaries will have to pay a lot more if your estate needs to go to probate, go into the courts and handle it that way. They'll be paying more in legal fees than they want. So just something to think about is, we mentioned this in investments, but pay now or pay later. This is one of those things that we recommend paying for now.
Talking about taxes, pay now or pay later, which we talk about.
Right.
But that's another topic for another day.
Yes. And I did get a comment from a client that says some companies offer legal plans to reduce legal fees on wills. So that, that's good to know. So thank you. Someone asked about safe deposit contents. Anything in the safe deposit should be listed within the will, of what happens to those, that's your property. And so how your property is divided. I think it's important and possible to have someone else who can access the safe deposit box that's not you. So you have a backup to get into those contents, to access that. But that should be included. And when you are writing, it's important that when you're doing your organization and your record keeping, that you write that it's there and who to contact and where that safe deposit box is. That's very important. If another person is not included on that to open it, it might have to also go through the courts, or you might have to provide certain documentation to have access to that safety deposit box. So that's important to know.
Jen could go on for hours.
I'll take one last one. I just got one last
one. Promise? Okay.
Promise. Last one is the best place to store your will and estate planning documents, which is a great, great question. There are a lot, now there are some virtual safes that are available. Fidelity does offer one, FidSafe. We can, get more information to you about that.
And we might have one on our portal soon.
Right.
Yeah.
We can store documents on our portal as well.
Images of your documents.
Yes. And also, your attorneys typically do keep a copy, either paper or, online documentation of your will. And so another reason why to have that contact information of who has the copy of the will. We also talk to clients about having, a fireproof safe in the house is also a good backup for documents, and not just your wills, but that's also including passports, marriage certificates, birth certificates, anything that you might need. Important financial documents can all be stored in that fireproof safe. And I know that Amazon, for example, has various options at low price points to keep. So hopefully that's helpful.
Great, great. We don't want to go too far over. We can talk about this, as I said, for hours. Jen is always available. I'm available. The staff here is available for your questions. Again, this is a fraught topic, talking to family members about things having to do with your own wishes, your own money matters. But it's not to be taken lightly. It is important. So do it when you can. We want to wish you all a very happy, safe, and dry, because we are getting a storm here soon, holiday season. We probably won't do this again till after the new year. Hope to see you then. We appreciate your time today. Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.